Here's a comprehensive, deep-dive exploration of the natural world, designed to be read aloud and packed with enough facts to keep you company on your offline listening journey. Get comfortable, because we are going to travel from the explosive birth of the universe all the way down to the microscopic engines that keep our planet breathing. The grand beginning, stardust, and deep time. To truly understand nature, we have to zoom out, way out. Everything you see, touch, and breathe began roughly 13.8 billion years ago with the Big Bang. In the first fractions of a second, the universe was an unimaginably hot, dense soup of subatomic particles. As it expanded and cooled, the first atoms formed, mostly hydrogen and helium. For millions of years, the universe was just massive clouds of these gases. But gravity, the great sculptor of nature, began pulling these clouds together. As the gas compacted, it heated up until nuclear fusion ignited. Let there be light. The first stars were born. Here is a wild fact about nature. You are literally made of stardust. Those early stars acted as massive cosmic forges. Through nuclear fusion, they smashed hydrogen and helium atoms together to create heavier elements like carbon, oxygen, and iron. When those massive early stars died, they exploded in dazzling supernovae, scattering these newly forged elements across the cosmos. These clouds of heavy elements eventually collapsed again to form new stars, planetary systems, and, roughly 4.5 billion years ago, our very own solar system. Every atom of carbon in your cells, every atom of iron in your blood, was created in the fiery heart of a dying star, forging the Earth, a restless planet. When Earth first formed, it was a molten hellscape. Heavy elements like iron and nickel sank to the center, creating our planet's core, while lighter silicates floated to the surface to form the crust. This layered structure is the engine of our dynamic planet. The Earth's core is incredibly hot, about as hot as the surface of the sun. The inner core is solid iron and nickel, kept solid by immense pressure. The outer core is liquid, and as the Earth spins, this swirling river of molten metal generates our planet's magnetic field. This field is a vital part of nature. It acts as an invisible shield, deflecting harmful solar radiation and preventing our atmosphere from being stripped away by solar winds. Above the core sits the mantle, a thick layer of semi-solid rock that churns in incredibly slow convection currents. Floating on top of this mantle is the crust, which isn't a single solid shell, but a cracked puzzle made of massive tectonic plates. These plates are constantly moving, rubbing against each other, colliding, and tearing apart at a speed comparable to how fast your fingernails grow. When plates collide, they push up massive mountain ranges. The Himalayas are still growing today because the Indian plate is crashing into the Eurasian plate. When plates pull apart, magma rises to form new ocean floor. And when they grind past one another, we feel the immense friction released as earthquakes. Volcanism, another result of this tectonic restlessness, might seem destructive, but it is actually a creative force. Volcanoes helped build the early atmosphere by releasing trapped gases from the Earth's interior and continue to create rich, fertile soils. The breath of the world, atmosphere and climate. Now let's look up. The atmosphere is a thin, delicate blanket of gas that makes life possible. It is primarily composed of nitrogen, about 78%, and oxygen, about 21%, with trace amounts of argon, carbon dioxide, and other gases. The atmosphere is divided into layers. The troposphere is the lowest layer, extending up about 10 kilometers. This is where you live, where almost all water vapor exists, and where all of our weather happens. Above that is the stratosphere, which houses the crucial ozone layer. Ozone molecules absorb the majority of the sun's ultraviolet radiation, acting like planetary sunscreen. Without it, the surface of Earth would be sterilized by UV light. Further up, we have the mesosphere, where meteors burn up, and the thermosphere, where the magnificent auroras, northern and southern lights, occur as solar particles interact with Earth's magnetic field. Weather is driven by the sun. The sun heats the Earth unevenly. The equator gets more direct sunlight than the poles. Nature hates an imbalance, so the atmosphere and the oceans constantly work to redistribute this heat. Warm air at the equator rises and moves toward the poles, while cold air from the poles sweeps down. Combine this with the Earth's rotation, which causes the Coriolis effect, and you get the complex, swirling patterns of global winds, jet streams, and storm systems. Water is the lifeblood of this atmospheric engine. The water cycle is a continuous, closed-loop system. The heat of the sun evaporates water from oceans, lakes, and even plants, a process called transpiration. This invisible water vapor rises, cools, and condenses into clouds. When the droplets get too heavy, they fall back to Earth as precipitation, rain or snow. The water flows through rivers, percolates into underground aquifers, and eventually makes its way back to the ocean to start the cycle all over again. The amount of water on Earth is finite. The water you drink today is the exact same water that the dinosaurs drank. The genesis of biology. Life finds a way. How did non-living chemistry become living biology? This is one of nature's greatest mysteries, a process known as abiogenesis. Around 3.8 billion years ago, in the primordial oceans, complex organic molecules began to self-replicate. These early precursors to life likely formed near hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor, where heat and rich chemical soups provided the necessary energy. The earliest life forms were simple, single-celled organisms called prokaryotes, bacteria and archaea. For billions of years, this was the only life on Earth. But then, a monumental shift occurred. A group of microbes known as cyanobacteria developed a revolutionary trick, photosynthesis. They learned how to take sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide and turn it into sugar for energy. The byproduct of this reaction was oxygen. Initially, this oxygen was toxic to most existing life, an event known as the Great Oxidation Event. But it set the stage for complex life. Oxygen is a highly reactive, high-energy element, and organisms eventually evolved to use it for cellular respiration, unlocking massive amounts of energy. This allowed cells to grow larger, become more complex eukaryotes, and eventually band together to form multicellular life. The history of life is driven by evolution by natural selection, a concept famously articulated by Charles Darwin. The mechanism is elegantly simple. Organisms produce offspring with slight genetic variations, mutations. If a variation gives an organism a survival advantage in its specific environment, like thicker fur in an ice age, or a longer beak to reach nectar, that organism is more likely to survive and pass that trait to the next generation. Over millions of years, this slow process has branched the tree of life into the staggering diversity we see today. The green engine, the botanical world. Plants are the foundation of almost all terrestrial ecosystems. They are the primary producers, meaning they build the base of the food web by turning solar energy into physical matter. A plant is a marvel of biological engineering. Leaves are essentially biological solar panels, packed with chloroplasts containing the green pigment chlorophyll, which captures sunlight. On the underside of leaves are tiny pores called stomata. Plants breathe through these, taking in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen and water vapor. To get water from the ground to the leaves, plants use a plumbing system made of xylem tubes. Remarkably, they don't have a pump like a heart to move this water. Instead, as water evaporates from the leaves, transpiration, it creates negative pressure, pulling up an unbroken chain of water molecules all the way from the roots, sometimes hundreds of feet into the air in the case of giant redwood trees. The food made in the leaves is then distributed throughout the plant via another set of tubes called phloem. But plants aren't solitary, silent statues. We now know that forests operate as massive, interconnected networks. Underground, the roots of trees are woven together by intricate webs of fungi known as mycorrhizal networks, often playfully called the wood wide web. Through this fungal internet, trees can share nutrients, send warning signals about drought or insect attacks, and even pump resources to weaker, shaded saplings. Fungi are not plants. They belong to their own distinct kingdom, and they are nature's ultimate recyclers, breaking down dead organic matter and returning vital nutrients to the soil. Without fungi, the world would quickly be buried under miles of undecomposed dead trees and leaves. The animal kingdom, masters of adaptation. Animals, part of the kingdom Animalia, are the great consumers of the natural world. They are categorized broadly into invertebrates, animals without backbones, which make up roughly 97% of all animal species, and vertebrates, mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish. The sheer variety of animal adaptations is a testament to the power of evolution. Every species is a highly specialized tool perfectly fitted to its ecological niche. Consider the extremes of survival. Tardigrades, or water bears, are microscopic animals that can survive being boiled, frozen to near absolute zero, subjected to massive doses of radiation and even exposed to the vacuum of space. They do this by entering a state of suspended animation called cryptobiosis, drying out and replacing the water in their cells with a protective sugar. Animals possess senses we can barely comprehend. Bats and dolphins use echolocation, emitting high-frequency sounds and listening to the echoes to build detailed, three-dimensional maps of their surroundings in total darkness. Migrating birds navigate over thousands of miles by sensing the Earth's magnetic field, reading the stars, and recognizing polarized light. Sharks have specialized organs called the ampullae of Lorenzini that allow them to detect the minute electrical impulses generated by the beating hearts of hidden prey. Ecosystems are delicate balancing acts of predator and prey, herbivores and carnivores. Within these webs, certain species are known as keystone species. These are animals whose presence holds the entire ecosystem together. For example, sea otters eat sea urchins. Without otters, the sea urchin population explodes, and they consume entire kelp forests, destroying the habitat for thousands of other marine species. Wolves in Yellowstone National Park are another famous example. Their reintroduction kept deer and elk populations moving, which allowed overgrazed riverbanks to recover, bringing back songbirds, beavers, and a healthier river system. The deep blue, secrets of the ocean. The oceans cover over 70% of Earth's surface and hold about 97% of all its water. We have explored more of the surface of the moon than we have the deep ocean floor. The ocean is driven by massive, global conveyor belts of water. Surface currents are driven by winds, while deep ocean currents are driven by differences in water density determined by temperature and salinity, saltiness. This process, known as thermohaline circulation, plays a massive role in regulating the global climate by distributing heat from the equator to the poles. Marine life is stratified by depth and light. The sunlit upper layer, the epipelagic zone, is where the vast majority of ocean life exists. Here, microscopic plant-like organisms called phytoplankton drift in the billions. Though invisible to the naked eye, phytoplankton are the true lungs of the Earth. They produce roughly 50% of the oxygen in our atmosphere, outproducing all the world's rainforests combined. As you dive deeper, light fades. In the twilight and midnight zones, animals have adapted in bizarre ways. Many deep-sea creatures use bioluminescence, creating their own light through chemical reactions to attract prey, find mates, or confuse predators. At the very bottom of the ocean, along the mid-ocean ridges where tectonic plates pull apart, we find hydrothermal vents. These are essentially underwater geysers spewing scalding, toxic, mineral-rich water. Amazingly, life thrives here in total darkness. Specialized bacteria use the toxic chemicals, like hydrogen sulfide, to create energy through a process called chemosynthesis, supporting entire ecosystems of giant tube worms, blind crabs, and ghostly fish that are completely independent of the sun's energy. The invisible world, the microscopic rulers. We often think of nature as trees, mountains, and animals, but the undeniable rulers of Earth are microbes. Bacteria, archaea, and viruses represent the unseen foundation of life. There are more bacteria in a teaspoon of healthy soil than there are humans on the entire planet. Microbes are the engines of the planet's chemical cycles. Take the nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen makes up 78% of the air we breathe, and it is a critical component of DNA and proteins. But plants and animals cannot use nitrogen gas directly. We rely entirely on specialized bacteria in the soil and in the roots of certain plants to fix nitrogen, pulling it from the air and converting it into a usable form like ammonia. Without these invisible microbes, plant life, and therefore all animal life, would cease to exist. We also have our own internal ecosystems. The human microbiome consists of trillions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi living on our skin and in our guts. In fact, there are roughly as many microbial cells in your body as there are human cells. These internal communities are an extension of nature within us. They help us digest food, synthesize vitamins, regulate our immune system, and even influence our mood by producing neurotransmitters like serotonin. We are not just individuals, we are walking, talking ecosystems. The web of interconnection. If there is one ultimate fact to take away from this journey through nature, it is that nothing exists in isolation. The Russian scientist Vladimir Vernadsky helped popularize the concept of the biosphere, the idea that the living shell of the planet is a single, interconnected chemical and geological force. Later, the Gaia hypothesis proposed that the Earth functions as a self-regulating, complex system, where living organisms interact with their inorganic surroundings to maintain the conditions for life on the planet. The iron dust blown from the Sahara Desert across the Atlantic Ocean settles in the Amazon basin, providing the exact nutrients the rainforest needs to thrive. The water vapor exhaled by those Amazonian trees travels in atmospheric flying rivers to provide rainfall to distant agricultural lands. The carbon dioxide, exhaled by a wolf in the tundra, is eventually absorbed by a blade of grass halfway across the world. Nature is a massive, incredibly complex, dynamic engine of physics, chemistry, and biology. From the atomic forging in the hearts of ancient stars to the silent communication of trees through underground fungi, every single piece is part of a grand, ongoing narrative. It is a system of profound balance, infinite adaptation, and relentless survival.